I hate you. We've just got live, and we go live 10 seconds in. She's already having me holding my head in my hands. What? Relax.
It's talent. I'm a talented person, Jack.
Hello.
You're welcome.
Everyone on Facebook. If you are joy scrolling and you see someone doing a nice live video, hi, my name is Jack Holder. I am the editor for The Great Commandment. These two partners in crime are Margaret and Jesse Lundberg. They are here for our round of interviews, the first round of interviews since the election results have been posted.
That's right.
Yes, we are. We are going to be sort of nice and respectful about politics. Fingers crossed, mostly for me. I am so happy.
I have some things to say. I'll be respectful.
The look on Jesse's face says it all.
He's not going to be the one talking.
So I hope you, everyone watching, I hope that you enjoyed this upcoming interview. I have been looking forward to this for the better part of a month. And because we have a great interview today, we're going to be talking about the comics anthology that we all are a part of, talking about indie comics, New England comics, talking about what it means to do things like faith and politics in this weird medium. And we're just going to have a grand old time. So what are we talking about? Well, the main thing that we are talking about actually is the Great Commandment comics anthology. It is on Kickstarter, and on Friday we passed through our $5,000 goal. We are currently sitting at 122 amazing backers, and it is about commands. Each and every day we have commands that are an essential part of our everyday lives, from the high and eloquent, you must love your neighbor as yourself, the 10 commandments, the greatest commandment, to more political, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, elected someone with X amount of votes, to the more common everyday ones of, okay, let's make sure we actually get to the interview on time. We need to make sure that we get to all of our meetings and set up everything for the next week. To the quote-unquote lowborn but really loved, live long and prosper and be excellent to each other. But just as much as those commands are important, so too is our response of, yes, but what does that all really mean? What does it mean to live long? What does it mean to be excellent? What does it mean to be a good American, a good human being, a good Catholic? And in that one, we actually have someone here talking about what it really means to live a life of faith, of family, and of love. If she can stop laughing for me.
I thought you were going to say I was a good Catholic, and I was going to be like, ha, ha, ha.
You are a good person. It is Margaret and Jesse Lundberg here, the husband and wife couple. I am not going to be able to do their biography justice. So, Jesse, why don't you describe your work first?
Oh, I do family-friendly zombie comic for the most part, is what I'm known for. It's Harold the Happy Human Eater. I have been doing some other freelance artwork through doing marketing as well as other comics, including the anthology, but basically have pen will travel type of deal. As far as
You have a cover
artwork.
coming out?
I have a couple covers coming out through a indie publisher, and yeah.
Excellent. And you are joined by writer Margaret Lundberg.
Yes. When I can find time to write, yes. No, and I've been the one helping Jesse with the Harold the Happy Humanator. I'll usually write out the script. Like we'll talk about what like kind of, because it's a comedy, you know, talk about what kind of type of gags we like and what kind of subject matter and stuff like that. And then I kind of put together a dialogue, and he might say, oh well, what if this person said blank? And it's like, oh okay, so we work together on that. Otherwise, my writing is mostly like a few poems, short stories. I have a few play ideas. I've had this one idea I've been sitting on for like years, and you know, every now and then I'll get a boost and I'll write a little bit, and then I'll hit a wall and I'll stop. And we are also both parents to a very active, almost 4-year-old. So whatever we get done gets done around parenting time, hence the time of the interview, because that's when we knew she would be in her room.
Wonderful. Now, let's talk about this piece. Let's talk about my guide. It is actually available if people want to check it out in our free preview. You have enough time that you can find this link. It's also on our Kickstarter page. You can click the link, download, read my guide really quick, and realize that you need to go out and buy 6 copies of the book right now. But for even more behind the scenes work, because we have the two of you, can you tell us a little bit about my guide?
Well, that will mostly be me. Jesse was so lovely to help with the illustrations, but the story is mine and deeply personal to me. So when we were first approached the idea of contributing to the anthology, looking at the subject matter, I knew my grandfather was going to come up. To most people who speak to me, if it goes towards the direction of religion, he undoubtedly comes up. My grandfather, who was my father's father, passed away in 2008, but growing up, it was very clear that like he and my grandmother both, like that was the pinnacle of being a good human, and being a good human through the church, in their case. But it just it meant a lot having them kind of as the patriarch and matriarch of what religion meant to my family. You know, we were all practicing Catholic, grew up, and I was in college when he passed away, and that really took a blow on me. And part of what I wanted to express is that, so I currently, full disclosure, I don't go to any mass services. My mother sings for a church, and every now and then I'll pop on if they're having a kids service with Erin. We don't, like I said, we don't practice a lot. That is not for any other reason other than it's emotional for me. Most people will know me as being very open, like almost to a textbook of oversharer. Like you'll know a lot about me if you talk and any little bit about me. As you know, we're only like 8 minutes into the interview and are already here. But when my grandfather passed away, it was tough going into church service because I'd think about him. And so I really wanted to use this piece as a way to express that you don't have to go to a building, and you don't have to go to services to still hold practices in your heart and to still live your life as you should, regardless of your religion. Just be a good person. And the point I really wanted to get was the love thy neighbor as thyself. It's like, that's end all be all. How is that so hard? But I really wanted to express how, you know, religion is personal, and sometimes it's personal to a fault where it gets too personal and too emotional. And sometimes I just don't feel like spending my Sunday mornings crying about my grandfather while sitting in church. So, because that's the reality of it. You know, as an oversharer, I don't need everyone to see that response. But again, knowing I was going to be contributing to this anthology, I wanted it out there, and I wanted other people to find a little glimpse of, oh yes, you know, going to church reminds me of my grandparents, of my mother, of my neighbor, whoever it is that brings them there, but also realizing that it's okay to recognize the breaks for yourself because of that.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I actually wanted you and your story to be a part of the Great Commandment, because faith is one of those, I find it a very integral part of life. I don't want to just say just organized religion, though I am very, very involved in organized religion, but faith and our personal belief systems. The fact that you were talking about how you don't need to go to church and you don't need to actually go to particular buildings, and that at the same time we had the pandemic going on, and it really it challenged a lot of people's understanding of, am I really in church?
More ways than one.
Yeah. Now, was doing this project easier during the pandemic than than it could have been in other times?
Luckily, living with the artist I was working with, was going to help regardless. Being under house arrest, quarantine, with said artist, it sort of made it easier, but at the same time, it also meant that we were at home with our child, and we were stressed, especially at the very beginning. I wasn't sure what was happening with my job. I'm a behavior specialist, and I do one-on-one with students, and routine is very important. And all of a sudden we pulled the rug out from under those students and told them they couldn't come back, and told them they couldn't see the people they'd been working with. And it was a very hard, confusing time. And then the student that I was with had some other things happen that really hit me a lot deeper than it probably should have, but it was, everything was chaos at the time. So it, like I said, in a way it was easier because we were there, but there were more mental obstacles to go around. So some nights there were just nights that, Erin would be in bed and we would just lay there and be like, we need to have another day of this. And then, and every now and then I'd say, oh, Jesse, we should probably work on the comic. And then he would pull up his iPad. The iPad has been so helpful for him. And he may disagree with us. I like being able to look over his shoulders and go, oh, you're going that way. I was thinking maybe we could do this.
You have done that without the iPad too.
Oh yeah, I would have done that without. It was easier with the iPad though, because then you didn't have to be downstairs and I didn't have to stand over your shoulder. I could just lay down in bed next to you and look over your shoulder.
Yeah.
So, Jesse, was that a challenge for you? Not just working with her right next to her, but you were going into something extremely personal for Margaret on this.
I obviously heard the story several times. Being together as to, I kind of knew this was the story she was going to choose if she was going to submit. And I pushed her a couple times to be like, hey, if you're going to submit, you need, get on that.
Yeah.
As far as like drawing during it, I was doing a lot of freelance stuff during the day. So, at night it was something different. It was nice to have a deadline. Whereas most of the drawing I did during the pandemic, well, obviously we're still in it, but when I was home, wasn't necessarily like a hard deadline. People would be like, hey, could you draw me this? Sure. And they're like, yeah, no, whenever you get to it. So I was the one that was enforcing my own deadlines. Whereas this one was like, hey, no, you actually have to get this done. So it was almost a relief to actually have someone being like, hey, this actually has to be done by a certain time, not just, it gave some sense of normalcy.
Some structure.
Because if I didn't have that, it would have been, back burner type of thing.
You would have had it yesterday.
Yeah, possibly. Not exactly. I'm really good with deadlines, but it just I was out of work for what, a month and a half, almost 2 months.
About
My
no, I think a month and a half.
month and a half.
Yeah.
About a month and a half. So just having some structure. It's also the first time I've ever completely drawn everything on digitally. So these pages don't exist anywhere other than digital. And that was, I used it as kind of a time to learn because it's a new program to me. I did in Procreate. So I use this time to also learn and teach myself different tools. Obviously, I've used Adobe products in the past and such. And so it wasn't going into doing digital art cold turkey, but it was I used it as a learning tool also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I was there along the way to say, why is it doing that?
I have no idea. Is this supposed to be turning that color? Probably not. I don't know.
Can't you just select? I'm trying to select.
Luckily, that's gotten a lot better.
Yes.
Does this sort of collaborative process, how does it not just work, but does it help the creative process along? Because these sorts of questions sometimes help spark new ideas of, oh, wow, actually, we need to go in that direction. I was just doodling.
Yeah. I have never worked with anybody else other than Jesse. I've either written things for myself or written comic scripts that Jesse then illustrates. So I know I have a little bit of lax of being able to just kind of give him a script with very minimal detail, like shot of church, shot of inside church, make sure this is here. And then while he's drawing it, I can then kind of tweak it and go from there. It's like, oh, well, make sure this detail is here. Or, oh, now that I'm seeing it, can we change this detail like that? And I recognize that not every author gets to do that with their artist, or they have to have very long back and forth emails, and somebody has to sacrifice, either the artist sacrifices what their vision was, or the author has to sacrifice what their vision was. Luckily, though, Jesse and I are at the point where, like, if he can explain something to me where, like, because he has the art technical skills. So if I say, oh, I'd really love to see this, and he says, well, doing it this way will make it look XYZ, and that's probably not what you want. So the reason I'm doing this is because it's it's ABC. And then I can say, oh, all right, that makes sense. Versus when he does something and then I come in and say, oh, the reason I was thinking this is because XYZ, ABC, all that stuff. So no, it's interesting. And when I was like going over what I wanted to say in the interview, I realized I'm like, man, if I do ever work with somebody that's not you, I am screwed.
Be a lot more descriptive with somebody else.
I'm gonna be so screwed. Or I'm just gonna have complete faith and trust in whoever I work with and say, please, 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 like, mind control. Like, let's work together and let's figure this out. Because I definitely have a crutch of living with the artists that I like to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I've worked on a comic with one other person, but I actually, I started trying to do Johnny's, and then
you started trying to do Johnny's. You did the zombie one,
yeah,
the other zombie one, the not family friendly zombie
George
one.
Romero,
the George Romero one.
So I've had experience dealing with a couple other people.
Client commissions, obviously.
Yeah. So
people don't pay me to write. I pay them to beg to read what I write.
I've had a little bit of experience trying to go through. I like the instant of, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and she literally is right there going, oh, okay, yeah, yes or no. Unlike, with some of the pages that I've had to submit to the writer and have them take 3 days to get back. I'm like, okay, that's 3 days I've lost because you haven't responded to me. Or, the response gets lost somewhere. So that's definitely helpful. So
Yeah.
In a world of immediate wanting immediate satisfaction and stuff, it's helpful.
Absolutely.
I don't leave him on red.
So during these interviews, I've been asking writers and artists tips for creators. Now, the two of you, I'm going to ask you about weird ones because it seems less relevant right now, but commissions and conventions, because the two of you, every time I've seen Jesse is working on a new commission, and I don't care if it's before the convention, during the convention, at dinner after the convention.
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like it's Saturday night of a 3-day con he's doing it. I'm saying it's like 4 hours past final bell on Sunday, and he's like, well, I can get this done right now. I don't care if I'm in the middle of a burger joint.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I miss conventions.
I mean,
I do.
Part of that's just drive, because I don't want to get home and then forget about something. Yeah, I've always been fairly quick with how I draw. So,
and you seem to get a lot of the not fame, not notoriety, but you are known, especially throughout New England, for your commissions as well. That seems to be how you generate.
Well, and especially with conventions, I think a lot of what people enjoyed with Jesse in particular, I can brag because I'm not him and he'll say no, but I'll brag, is that they could give him an idea and then come back an hour later and have a finished product. And now it's one of those, like, it's a testament to, if you watch an artist draw for 30 seconds, 30 minutes, 30 hours, obviously there's going to be a difference. There's going to be so much more detail added. And looking at the pieces Jesse spends hours on, you can see that added detail. But he's really good at still having that 30-minute, 1 hour thing come across with everything you could have possibly wanted in a commission. And the amount of times I saw people who would come by and say, oh, can you do like this character, looking at this character in this style? And he would just do it. And in a blink, he would have, because he would do like the overly cartoonized style, he would do like portraiture pictures, he would just like knock it out of the park. And so that was one of the nice things with conventions, because people could see that. They could actually see him sitting there working. And like sometimes he'd even be talking to the people he was drawing for while he was drawing. And they're just there watching it come to life with the pencil and then the ink and then the color. And it's done and it's there.
I've had a few times where if it's a kid commissioning and I'll ask, the parent, do you, and the kid, do you want to watch? And I've had a couple kids come behind the table, sit in the chair next to me, and I'll draw it with them watching so that they can get a more almost hands-on approach of watching how artists construct things. So maybe, that might spark interest in them wanting to become an artist and such. And so I've done that a few times.
Yeah, and recognizing the change of style too. Like I said, it's like, he's done stuff in kind of his own personal cartoon things. He's done, like one time you were doing, like not quite caricatures, but like little cartoons of people. And there was a radio personality up this way who was running the event, and he came by and he's like, oh, you do fun stuff. I always liked cartoons ever since like Flintstones and Hanna-Barbera, stuff like that. And just he's like, oh, do you want to see yourself as a Flintstones character? And he like drew up, and it was almost like perfect. Like it could have popped out of a Fred Flintstone cartoon. It was great. And then immediately turn around and draw like a more portraiture style for the mom who wants their kid on the fridge. Like, it's amazing to me. And I think it's nice to be able to see that one artist can have so many different things, and you can play and you can have fun with what you're doing. And, the day when he says like he's sick of art, I don't know what I'll do. I'll probably fall over. Like, what? Because he can vary it up.
I'm sick of art.
And that was something that was nice with the conventions, was being able to have that all in one place where there could be an audience to see that. Now it's like, you have some social media presence, but then you also have, the work that you do. And especially if you're getting work from people where it's like kind of hush hush, you can't share it. And so.
Right. I'm doing some stuff for a professional artist, like behind the scenes stuff right now. And he's giving me credit for it, obviously, but, it's not like I can go and share the pages that he's sending me.
Yeah.
I'm doing flats for a friend. And, so it's not really super ridiculously difficult work, but I am doing stuff for a professional, but it's not like I can go and put it out there, because it's like, okay, for one thing, it's not my drawing, it's just my flat colors behind it. But I also can't share it because he doesn't want it out there until he's ready to publish. So that's why my Instagram has been kind of silent lately, because I've been doing that. I'm working with a company out in, I think they're out in Oregon, that are doing a mystery box, a horror mystery box, and I've got a print all ready to go. They just have to fund it. And today, and I also do charity stuff. Like today, I found out that there's a company called Comic Books for Cancer, and they send artists blank sketch covers for you to draw on and send back, and then they auction them off for cancer research. So I'm getting a couple of those sent to me. He's mailing them out tomorrow, actually. So
great. So what's seriously? It's the kind of work that is. It seems so small to certain artists. Like, oh, I'm just doing this quick book for kids or quick book for. And then it just means so much to people to just be able to hold a comic book to help them through the day, through a really hard disease.
Oh yeah, it's the disease that took my grandfather and my grandmother, but my grandmother passed away much later, 2015. So it's and yeah, cancer kind of hits me a little differently because of those experiences. So when he told me he was doing that, it's like, oh.
I've been a part of a few charity things.
Well, the Bomber Beauties.
The Bomber Beauties, which was a sketch art set. The Island Dreams one was a sketch card set, and all those were to raise money for different charities. One was like the Bomber Beauties. Part of it was for a World War II memorial or museum, and some other stuff. I can't remember. They had like a list of charities that they were gonna be putting money towards.
Yeah.
And the last set of cards sold out in like 3 days. So.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, good stuff.
So if you're a charity and want to hit me up,
we'll work for charities.
You'll work for charities, and you'll work with solo editors with a dream.
Yes. He'll willingly work with his wife, so I think we're good on most other people.
I call that charity.
I call that don't make me do the dishes.
Oh, I hate the dishes. Yeah.
No, the dishes are my responsibility. It actually.
You can come over anytime. Then I'm done with this.
You cook, and Jesse gives me.
I can make passable meals. I can make fairly passable meals.
Passable.
I'm no Martha Stewart, but I'm slightly above cold Campbell soup in a pot.
Yeah, she has never gone to jail for
insider trading.
Insider trading. Her best friend is not Snoop Dogg.
Oh, but how much fun would that be? Okay, that's a different
You
story.
might not remember much, but
That exactly.
do you remember that great time you had with Snoop Dogg?
Remember
No.
how I talked about not being a good Catholic?
No, I don't remember any of that. Weird.
Yeah.
So, for the people at home, we are in fact doing this anthology for a Kickstarter, and we have currently funded. We still have over 3 days to go, and we are actually closing in on $6,000, which
Nice.
is mind-boggling. Seriously, the biggest one I've ever run was the Indiegogo for Why Faith, and that just cracked 5,000. Like we ended up, I remember it was a weird number, 5,111 from 111 backers. So,
Look at you, Mr. Numbers guy.
oh yeah. So if you oh, the count has meant so much to me.
Yes. Oh my, everything has meant so much. Yeah.
If you like Jesse and Margaret's work, and you actually want to learn more about this, please check out the Kickstarter campaign. I think Jesse was saying he was going to be doing something fun for the final few days.
Were you going to do something fun?
I was.
I don't know, were you?
Sure.
Did you
Something
talk to us
like-
about doing something fun?
Possibly.
Something in like a sketch variety.
In a what?
Sketch.
Oh yeah. I haven't worked out the exact details for that, but yeah, I definitely will do any type of sketches.
You could do an exclusive print of the one that's coming out for the art book. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because that was also a little bit of a collaboration piece.
It was mostly told. It was more of you probably shouldn't do that.
Well,
I'm gonna do that.
Okay, but if you're gonna do that, then
Okay.
you should.
Okay with Jack. Sense to Jack. You sure you want to do that? I want to do that.
The king of controversy over here. For those who did follow the Why Faith, the art book companion piece.
Are we talking about that piece?
It sets up for this piece.
Kinda.
Yeah,
I
no,
love that piece. That made people stop. So for background, for the Why Faith Indiegogo, we also ended up doing an art book companion piece with a ton of artists putting their own spin on that. We're actually going to be doing that again, but we're going to be folding it into a deluxe version of The Great Commandment. And we've already seen a ton of great work from Karen Gosselin, who Margaret and Jesse know.
Oh, yeah.
I love Karen. Karen, if you're watching, I love you.
Camry Lapka, Amanda Call managed to get
Another
her.
one.
So, Jesse, by faith, was he did from what for Christians is a wonderful digression into a modernist retelling of the Good Samaritan. But for Jesse, it was probably a little bit different.
I mean, I don't know.
I was gonna say, do you want me to preface it up before you put a foot in your mouth?
Probably.
Okay. So when we talk together usually about religion and kind of what solidified it, I talk about my grandfather a lot. A little less, but still important, is my grandpa, my mother's father. He died when I was very young. And being a practicing Catholic family, I was told, well, he's not in pain anymore. He's up in heaven. And that's comforting for a kid. You don't want to think of your grandparents in pain. And so that kind of just helped me with it. It's just a comfort, and I believe at the core of it, religion is a comfort. And that may be a separate topic, but anyway, so that was something that like really sat with me. And then, you know, as I grew up and even later in life when my grandfather passed away, all that. Whereas Jesse, I don't want to say didn't have a religious experience growing up. It was like kind of background. It
was
wasn't,
more background.
it was background, but not really there, not really present. And his first experience with death was when he was old enough to question it of, you know, why. And it was, oddly enough, it was 9/11, because Jesse's whole family are firefighters. And for them to have seen such loss and devastation, Jesse was at an age where it's like, why would this happen? And so for him, I feel like that kind of set his sights a little separate from the way that my sights were set on it. And, you know, though we have discussions about it, it's, you know, it's very clear that Jesse is not against people who are religious, but against those that use it for unfavorable means, basically.
Right. What it is I'm not necessarily sold on one thing. You know, I can say that, yeah, there's a possibility that there is something out there, and you know, there most definitely could be. My concern is more with the people who cherry pick things out of any form of religion or anything really, and use that to knowingly hurt people.
Justify actions.
And justify that, and justify their actions, or to live what they believe is so close to the book that they don't understand or care about what's going on around them. And that's what that piece was about. It was, for those who hadn't seen it, it's a person walking down a street that looks like it's in disrepair of some sorts, reading the Bible, or I made it a Bible. It could, you know, it had a cross on it. It could have been whatever. I put something instantly recognizable, because it's not narrowed down to just Christian, Catholic, or you know, anything like that. And you know, in the background there was, you know, graffiti of like "Go back to Mexico" and you know, a swastika, and there was you know, homeless people, like a veteran, you know, being like, you know, will do anything. Homeless guy, anything helps. And you know, a person of the LGBTQ section community. Yeah, my, you know, saying, you know, disown for who I love and stuff. And it's like you are so blinded by doing what you think is right, which is following the book, that you have put blinders on to the situations that are actually around you that you could actually be helping with. Mm-hmm. So
and that's one of the reasons why I love the piece so much, because even if it seemed anti-religion, what you really were getting at was a staid religion that or understanding of faith that is so constricted that it can't actually function in the real world. I speak about Samaritan with that one a lot, because we go from the beginning. Man gets beaten on the road to Damascus, lies in a ditch, and then we go straight to the end. The Good Samaritan picks him up and feeds him, nurses him back to health, and takes him to an end. We forget that there are two guys that pass by the man beaten and lying in the road, and they're holy men, they're priests, and their response is they write down prayers and toss them into the ditch, and they're like, I need to get on with my day. And very much that's what I saw with Jesse's work, was I'm so focused on what faith is to me, and only me in this particular book, that I have completely shut myself off from the rest of the world.
Yeah, and you know, there's stories like that. There's obviously the stories of the I believe it's the woman with the donations, right? The like all the rich people like came and they gave tons of coins into the church, and this one woman drops in one coin, and they basically said because she had so little and gave so much of that, it it just goes to show it's like you can have all of these sources of wealth and all that, but if you don't put that into practice, what are you doing? And Jesse unfortunately never had a chance to meet my grandfather, but he did meet my grandmother. And at both of their funerals, it was like I was floored by the stories. Like I knew him from my experience growing up, and having that church religious experience, and knowing that we'd get to go to dinners, we'd get to do all this stuff. My grandparents were in one of the upper brackets, like not so much like blow your nose in $100 bill type thing, but they were very well off and comfortable to be able to provide for their many sons and daughters and their grandchildren and all that. And just so many stories, like particularly for my grandfather. One of the things I'll always remember about his funeral is that there were like buses there of people coming from the offices he worked at to like standing room only. And at his wake, I heard stories of him going 2 hours out of his way to bring somebody home in a snowstorm because they weren't comfortable driving, of overhearing a conversation about looking for a piano piece, and the next day it was on their desk, of stopping meetings in the middle when people were pointing fingers saying, look, if we keep arguing about whose fault this is, we're not going to come to a conclusion. We need to move on. Just these amazing, incredible stories. And he was that type of person. Which one?
The car, giving it to.
Oh yeah, like they bought a new car and gave the old one to a family that needed it, like things like that. Like I said, they were both pretty incredible, but with my grandfather passing away first, he's the one that really sticks out prominently with that. And that just always stuck to me as like, that is what you need to be. That is a good human. And they used their faith to say that. It's like, I believe we need to take care of each other, and I believe love thy neighbor as thyself, and we need to do that. And it didn't matter if the people he was doing it for were Catholic or were Jewish or Muslim or whatever it was. It was just, we are all human beings.
It's very possible to do those things.
It is.
It's very easy to do those things.
And
it takes very little effort on some people's parts to completely change the trajectory of one person.
Yeah.
And I meant trajectory, not trajectory.
Trajectory. Yeah.
It's late.
Yeah.
I don't have a watch.
I was gonna say it's not. It depends on who you are. It's not that late.
You have a 4-year-old. It's late.
Yes.
Or almost 4.
Almost 4. But yeah, so that was always my experience with it, and knowing that, again, we're all just human, and if you are going to claim to be a person of any religion and any faith, it is more meaningful to practice it than it is to be there with your head in a book and going to the church services and repeating the same things over and over again if you're not going to do what needs to be done to take care of people.
So that was that piece.
Yeah, that was
that piece in a nutshell.
Yeah, and and that's part of why it's difficult to be in a service, like, and to be in an actual church service, because it's a very it's very stagnant. I feel like you sing the songs, you read the words, you do all this, but it's just an hour where you're standing there, and then afterwards there are people that go and they bring communion to the hospitals or the prisons and stuff like that, and that's wonderful. And so for me, I always felt like if I'm not actively working to do something to prove that we do love all humans and we should take care of our fellow humans, then why? I guess is probably just, it's hard. And it absolutely just boggles the mind that there are people who can truly, honestly use books like the Bible or whatever, religious, anything, to justify not caring about other people.
And then there's the piece for this deluxe edition.
Oh yeah, that's what we were getting at, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With modern times.
Yeah. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, and you Jack came up with the idea of, why don't you take a take on, current events like COVID. It was very obviously it was just getting started. I think like the pandemic was really kind of taking hold when we talked about it, and it kind of the pieces. I'm trying to think of how to put it. It's a man standing there, surrounded by, the literature of like the WHO reports and the guidelines and
Yardsticks,
yardsticks, masks, all this, and it's falling from above, and collecting around him, and he's here still being very stagnant, like he's he very
adamant
and proclaiming God will save me, as if the stuff that's surrounding him isn't a sign from above, almost like, well, if God created all people and all, then he's also creating these things to help you. But you think that just the thought of God will, well, all I have to do is pray and I'll be safe. And they're like, well, it's that joke of the guy that's
the man in the flood.
The man in the flood of, the guy walks by and is like, it's flooding, you should get out of here. Oh, no. God will save me. And then next thing they know is, like
the water's rising.
The water's rising and a boat comes and it's like, hey, get in the boat. And no, God will save me. And then he's up on the roof and the water's coming up above the roof and a helicopter's there and he's lowering down a ladder and no, God will save me. And then he dies and he goes up to the gates to heaven and he goes, God, why didn't you save me? He goes, what are you talking about?
I sent a police officer,
a boat, and a helicopter to save you.
What are you doing here?
What are you doing? Like, these are your signs. Like, so that it was kind of a take on that joke of, you can't be saying, well, God's going to save me when he's, if he's the creator of everything. If that's what you believe.
If you believe that God works in mysterious ways, sometimes
it's a guideline.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a 6-foot social distancing. It's so that's what that piece is. It's really kind of a riff on the flood, the man with the flood. So yeah.
Yeah,
he just happens to be wearing a red hat. I mean,
yeah.
And that's why I lost Jack a little bit.
No, I'm looking at
this. It said Murica, and you're like, does it need to say Murica? It's like, fine, I'll concede to that. Take off the Murica.
The anthologies are our opinions, but they're also done with love and compassion. It isn't us trying to slam dunk on our opponent.
Because I think it's really important to discern that we don't wish harm upon people who choose not to wear masks. We want them to wear masks. We do want them to be healthy humans. We want to be able to open up the stores. We want to not have to worry about wearing masks in stores. We want to be able to go up and give hugs and do that and shake hands. You don't wish harm upon those people. You want them to wake up and realize and say, oh.
It's like, if you want to be able to do these things, you have to make some concessions to it. You need to, we will get through this better together than we will going lone wolf on it.
And I think it's definitely one of those, if you don't laugh about it, then you're just going to cry, because that's definitely kind of the reality of everything right now. If you can't laugh about something, it's gonna hit home and it's gonna not do good things to you.
And I just like stirring the pot with Jack's stuff.
And you like stirring the pot with Jack's stuff.
I like to create conversations, and you can't say that my piece did not do that.
That is absolutely true, and that is the point of Why Faith. That is the point of the Great Commandment. It is about raising awareness, raising ideas, and raising questions. I've had people wonder, like, is this going to help my child learn to accept Jesus? And I'm like, it could, but that's not what.
But it doesn't. And if they don't, it doesn't make them a bad person. And I think that's what the book also teaches.
Well,
It's
I'm looking at this going, if all you got from Why Faith were all the Christian stories, and all you got from the Great Commandment was the Christian stories. I mean, as a Christian, I'm really happy that you are a part of the faith, but you also skipped like 2/3 of the pages.
And what I'm hoping people really get for it is there's not one correct way. So, like for instance, for me, my story is how I don't need to go to a building in order to feel like I am connected to a faith, a higher power, anything like that. That's not to say that I think nobody should go. It's like, oh, no, we don't ever need churches. Like, there are people who really do benefit from going to a building and from having that community. And that says nothing about them, which is why I really wanted to emphasize that for me, the choice of not attending isn't because I think I'm above it, as it is, I just don't want to cry every morning thinking about it. And who knows, maybe there will be a day when it is going to be easier. And because, I mean, it's already been 12 years. And grief is funny in that it is not linear. And there are some days where it's fine, and then other days where it just hits you like a sack of potatoes and you're just floored and knocked out. And so again, a lot of what I wanted to get across is like, I don't think I am the better person for not having to go to church. My choice to not attend is personal and has nothing to do with the church itself. And particularly with Catholicism, I recognize that a lot of people are skeptical of it, are skeptical of the history, are skeptical of the present, even though I must say, Pope Francis, hey, buddy, you're good.
I'm not Catholic, and I'm like, that guy's cool. He's doing it the right way.
There are definitely steps in the right direction, not ignoring the steps, not ignoring the hardships, basically, not ignoring those things. I know I was very lucky having an experience with a priest who was a genuinely kind human being before he retired. We had an openly lesbian couple in our church who came every day, and they were very much involved, and it was wonderful. I had that experience. I had Laconia, New Hampshire Bike Week, back when it was a weekend, only a weekend. You'd have that one weekend where everybody would come in with their leathers and chains and nobody side-eyed them. And they'd often take up like the front 2 rows. It was great to see. I had a very fortunate experience. And so, and again, the piece kind of goes into, the church closed, the priests retired, and then my grandfather died. It's personal, and it is not in any way I'm trying to start a movement of no churches ever. And the point of this anthology is for people reading it to see what others see. So somebody might see mine and say, oh, you know what? I don't feel like I need to go to a building, but I can do this, this, and this, and still feel like I am doing what I need to do. Somebody might see another one and say, oh, that really brings up this interesting point here, and now I can blah, blah, blah. It's the point. It might not bring you closer to Jesus, but it might bring you closer to whatever truth is best for you. Because all of us, we just need to be good humans. And whether you're a good human as a Christian, as an atheist, as a Muslim, whatever it is, if you're just a good human, that's all we need. Especially, yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much my entire view of religion in general. Is I don't care what you practice as long as you are a good person at the end of the day, and it can be it doesn't even have to be religion. I have a problem with giving people automatic respect in the sense that, well, they're like, well, you have to respect these people because they're in this position. There's a lot of horrible people that, one that I use a lot is they say you have to respect the military. I'm like, I can respect what they're doing and risking their lives, but there are people in the military who are really bad people. You know, so I would rather respect the individual than the organization. That's how I look at things. You know, I do volunteer firefighting, and there are people within the department that I was a part of that literally were doing it so that they could have the hero complex. It's like, yeah, you're doing the job, but you're not doing it for the right reason. You're doing it to kind of puff your chest up, and I'm better, rather than, you know, hey, yeah, I got up at 2:00 in the morning to help a neighbor whose barn was on fire, and having that be it. So, you know, I look at it this way: as long as you're a good person, that's all that matters to me. You could be the most religious person in the world or the least religious person in the world. As long as at the end of the day, you're not trying to hurt somebody else, and you're trying to at least promote some type of good in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really not hard. It takes a lot of effort to be a horrible person, really. Like some days I really swear people have to go out of their way to be a bad person.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Wow. We've been doing this for almost an hour.
You're like, this is the most you've ever talked, Jesse.
I was gonna say, I
Kinda.
told you I was an open
I'm a little
person.
hoarse.
Yeah.
Wait, I don't have anything yet.
Any final thoughts before we call this?
Well, I was going to bring. We talked earlier about, politics might come up. I actually did have a little bit about, again, that kind of level of emotion. Listening to the speeches last night. At one point, Joe Biden actually quoted a hymn that had been one of my grandfather's favorites. That he will raise you up on eagle's wings. If I talk anymore, I'm going to really start crying. But it's, it goes to show that, there's just that deep level of emotion there. And I really want those words to be true. But I also recognize that I feel people may have, how do I put this? Well, kind of like what Jesse said. It's like you don't earn respect by being of a certain religion. You earn respect by what you do about it. And I am hoping that what we will start to see come January is an example of the individual doing the right thing for no other reason than it is the right thing. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we could be heading in that direction. And for those, because I've seen some awful things about, not only about Biden's religion, but about, his practices and stuff like that. And it's just one of those things that you have to look at the individual accomplishments. And like I said, hearing him quote that hymn was a very emotional moment, but it also just goes to show it's like there's more to it than, walking the walk or talking the talk. If you have to walk the walk type thing. So I did want to bring that up because I'm sure I'm not the only one who caught that and had a reaction to it as well. The whole speech, honestly. So, we'll see, but it goes to show, and I think this is just a very emotional time for everybody, not just me because of memories of my grandfather. I think all of us have something coming from this time in this lifetime, with everything going on. So just, and I think it'll be nice, particularly with this anthology, again, for people to try to find like-minded souls and like-minded thoughts and feelings and get something out of it where they can really have a glimmer of hope, like that optimism.
Really go into it with an open mind. Like you said, it wouldn't have, people are looking at only the Christian pages, that they're only seeing a third of the book, So, go into it with an open mind, read, it doesn't hurt to educate yourself on different religions and different aspects and different viewpoints. If anything, that it will bring everyone closer together, because you'll be like, well, I never thought of it that way.
Yep.
You use it as a lesson, don't use it as a lesson, not an echo chamber.
use it as a chance just for people to see each other as people, not opponents. And
Yes.
that is what the Great Commandment and Why Faith are about. It's about raising awareness because you're much less likely to hate someone that you consider a good neighbor and a good person.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
hit the hour mark. That does it for me.
Yeah.
It has been a very full week for me, and we are not done yet. We are going until 9 a.m. on Thursday morning. So we have all of Monday, all of Tuesday, all of Wednesday, and the rest of Sunday to get the book. It is the Great Commandment Comics Anthology. It is available on Kickstarter, but not for that much longer a time. Please check it out. Thank you once again to Margaret and Jesse being here. We have our last interview, which is with Matthew Kund, on tomorrow at 8 o'clock. I hope to see you all there.
All right. Bye.
Guys.